if we talk, just touching on it again quickly, if we talk a little bit about some like system stuff. So, um, obviously you want to teach like your three zones. So D zone, neutral zone, offensive zone. So that would be your breakouts, your D zone coverage, and then neutral zone regroups, neutral zone forecheck, offensive zone forecheck, and some kind of system in that. Special teams, power play, PK. Then you start to get into things that maybe are a little bit more high level, which would be like face off plays or even like last minute plays, these types of things. So how did you go about like teaching and working on those things? And obviously it's different depending on the level, but for me, I'm just thinking back to when I played, and a lot of that stuff we like not on the ice. Like a lot of times it'd be like, okay, like this is our forecheck, and then maybe we would run it in a practice, but maybe we wouldn't. Or you do it in a few practices, and now you just know that these are our forechecks, and he could just call it before the game. Like the coach would just call it before the game. Obviously, that's a little bit more high level. But or even face-off plays, that's another good one. It's like running those kinds of things. So what are your thoughts on spending time on those? Or if you're not going to do it on the ice, this is kind of where you get into some weird territory about how much time are we going to spend on these things and like where it's appropriate, because are you going to have an hour meeting before practice to go over these things? And like, when is that appropriate? So kind of what are your thoughts on some of that system level stuff that maybe you can't fit into your practice time?
Yeah. Well, I think it's that's a really good question. Um, I think age appropriate is important. Obviously, if you're playing OHL, junior, college, pro, there's meetings and all that stuff, and the understanding of the game is a lot better. But having said that, I think it's still important that you do stuff on the ice, because skating is skating. How you move a puck, how you position yourself.
Running the route.
The higher you go, there's more little details to it. But let's go back to like a young 9-year-old team. Video is probably not going to do it. Like some kids, it might stick a little bit. If you go in a school gym or in a parking lot or whatever, and you mark out like this will be the corner, this would be a forecheck, this would be your D zone. You could do it in your shoes or whatever, fake hockey sticks or whatever. You can do it, but it's still not ice. I think, and the other thing is, if you think avoiding that is just a waste of time because it's not a high tempo practice, I think you're wrong. Because you can even see it in the NHL in junior. You'll do, like, for example, let's say D zone coverage. So I would do. I'm going to just show a piece of paper here just for this is a hockey rink. Okay, so this is your offensive zone. So let's say we dump a puck in and we just do a forecheck. So I might have a coach here and a coach here. And we'll throw a puck in that corner of this guy. So how do we forecheck? So if it's a 2-1-2 with a high guy, so first guy, second guy, have the third guy up high here. Let's throw the puck over here. What happens? This guy goes, this guy goes, this guy goes. It's nothing sexy, but it shows them, right? Okay, blow the whistle and we do the same thing down here. Now it's your D zone. Throw the puck here. D, center, get in all your positions and run through that a few times. For example, I think it's actually beneficial. You'll do that on the penalty kill. You do that in power plays. I think it's actually very beneficial because now you know exactly where you're on the ice, right? So like if you do that on video or in the gym, let's say like that, use a gym, well, there's no circles. There's like, so you got to kind of pretend.
Feel.
You can be a little bit more particular. So that's not really rocket science, but for the kids, it's like, okay, I get it. And now you can teach. It's a teaching point. So does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So
the other thing is like, so a lot of people get hung up on like even skills things, right? It's like, oh man, that was really good. Like someone will say, oh, that was a really good skate. When people say that to me, sometimes I go, that was just one because for whatever reason, I just had to get the kids going and I just worked them hard. It wasn't actually as good as you think it was. Actually, one that was a lot slower with more teaching or there's more details, that was actually better. Not necessarily all the time. So people a lot of times confuse a really good hard practice where you sweat to actually learning something and being able to execute. Because at the end of the day, even though you might be coaching a lower level team or a younger team, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't learn how to play hockey a little bit, right? I'm not talking like anything crazy, but the little details so that they can progress.
Yeah, and that gets to the like hockey IQ discussion and using coaching cues, because that's where you actually learn how to think the game properly. And I was even doing it today with guys doing our workouts. We had a hill workout today, and I was talking to them about doing knee drive stuff. And because for a lot of those kids, maybe they do, maybe they don't, you don't realize that the second half of your stride is the knee drive part. Like bringing your foot back is the second half.
That's your
And
speed.
yeah, right. That's the speed.
Yeah.
So when we're running on the hill, it's reminding them the purpose, like why we're doing this and how this translates. And in the practice setting, it's the same thing. If you're doing system stuff, that's why you need to have an understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, and you hit them with those coaching cues, and you can do it while they're moving. Like maybe at higher levels, you start to get into some like continuous forecheck drills. Like I remember a warm up drill we did at the U would be our forechecks. So it'd be like you would forecheck and they would break the puck out against our forecheck, then they dump it in, the next guys go, and it's like a flow of forechecks. And we do that for the first like 5 minutes as a warm-up drill. And you can start to run those things as guys understand the game more and they don't get confused about who's going and this kind of stuff. But even at that level, the details can slip. So as the coach, like saying those little things, like for the D, feet moving, like quick touches, like don't dust the puck off, guy like hard down the wall, or whatever your cues are that you want to use. These are things that just remind the guys in live action their points, right? Because it's easy to forget and not pay attention to those things. So maybe going a little bit to the skill stuff before we move on to the games. We talked about the stick handling, shooting, passing. We've talked about all that stuff a lot, but I think it's especially for younger, more inexperienced coaches or guys that haven't played. And I mean, this goes for systems too, for that matter. What if you don't know skill stuff or system stuff very well? So, like, what advice would you give to newer coaches, or even like coaches that are like AAA small center coaches that maybe aren't that experienced, or they don't know exactly what systems they should use or how to coach certain teams? Like, what advice would you give to those types of coaches, or even moms and dads watchings that are trying to be helpful? Like, how do you teach in those situations when maybe you don't have as much knowledge, where like maybe you can't demo the skill drill, or you can't show the system very well because you actually never did it, or you don't know it, or whatever?
Yep. Well, I'm going to say from a skills standpoint, I'm definitely not the skater I was 5 years ago, and my hands are okay. Like they're pretty good still. So I could use that as an excuse as I shouldn't be a skills coach anymore. Like I'm not as fast as I was, right? So I could use that as an excuse, but I have a brain still. So I can can still do it, but I can show the basics. So because dad on the ice is helping out with a 7-year-old group, and let's just say a simple thing, because the younger you are, it doesn't have to be elaborate skills. It's hanging onto the puck, it's skating, it's turning, it's making passes and stuff like that. So if they can show, even if they're knee knocked and they can hardly skate, there's 3 cones, let's say, and we're going to turn this way, we're going to turn this way, we're going to turn this way. You don't have to be Sidney Crosby to be able to teach that, right? The concept is there, and then you could say, let's move your feet, stuff like that. So that's number one. You don't have to be the best skills coach. Where do you get the information? That would be another thing. Or how do you apply it? Like I said, the younger you are, the less important it is on how perfect it is. It's just getting out there. And then small area games is another great way of just getting your skill, right? What was my point to that?
You're saying where to get the information.
Yeah, where do you get the information? So obviously, like to me, it's like go to someone that knows. I mean, I think the one thing that in life is that people are always happy to show what they know, right? If you ask someone, hey,